Hello, race fans. How are you? Welcome to another edition of the Road to Indy Insider Live. My name is Rob Howden, the voice of the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. Once again, home here in Cambridge, Ontario, Canada. It was essentially about a 4-month whirlwind of going to events. Of course, everything getting shut down back in March at St. Petersburg. We jammed so much racing from like the second week of July to the last weekend of October. I can't believe it. I know a lot of the drivers actually really enjoyed it because they got a chance to do a lot of racing. There wasn't a lot of downtime. We were back in the car, a week afterwards, whatever it may be. And I think a lot of drivers were liking that kind of a more truncated schedule. But I like it when it's kind of spread out some more. I think everybody wants to get back to St. Petersburg in March and see maybe a little bit more of a break between events. But we're looking forward again to the 2021 season. But we're still really, at least I am, in rewind mode. I'm having a look at everything that's happened, of course, in 2020 and what was a wild season in both USF 2000 and Indy Pro 2000. Indy Lights, of course, on hiatus. We'll see them come back in 2021, which I think is super exciting. Of course, do want to say hello to everybody who's kind of starting to tune in here right now. Let me throw my little comment up here for you so you guys can jump on the board. Folks, this is going to be a good one. The first two episodes here of the Insider Live postseason, I'm like, you know what? I got to get the champions. That's got to be the call. So Christian Rasmussen, USF 2000 champion, had a chance to talk to Christian. He was back home already in Denmark. Of course, he's looking forward to taking that scholarship to move to the Indy Pro 2000 category. Today, Sting Ray Robb, the champion of the Indy Pro 2000 category. What a season he had. Game changer for sure. Career changer, I think, as well. Let's get things up. Let's bring him in here right now before I start rolling things out. Let's go add to the stream. Sting Ray Robb, thank you for joining me here on The Insider.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
So let's just ask the quick question before I go into it. How's it feel a couple of weeks out from being the champ?
Oh, it feels pretty good. I'm starting to get used to it. The trophies actually just showed up a couple of days ago. We had to ship them home.
All right.
And pulling out of the box, I was looking at it again and like, wow, those look really good in our house.
I like this addition to my trophy collection, right?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So again, we've got people starting to dial in. We'll say hello to Elaine's on here. Kat's signed on. So we've got, of course, our hardcore Road to Indy racing fans are on. Alicia's dialed in as well. And we are green with this podcast for sure. Let's start like that, right?
Yeah, I like it.
Let's start by kind of rolling out what I said at the very start of the banquet when I introduced you as the champion. Great season for you, Stingray, with Juncos Racing. 7 wins in 17 races, 11 podiums, 15 top fives in 17 races. Only 2 times you were outside the top 5. One of them was 6th. I think the other was a 10th. 5 poles, 5 fastest race laps. The most laps led, the most races led, and I think almost maybe even more importantly, the only driver to complete all 485 laps. And if any IndyCar team owners or managers are watching this, they want someone who brings the car home, right? We don't wreck cars. We finish all the laps. 485 laps, you completed every lap. I have to believe that's kind of a little thing that you can put a feather in your cap and use that moving forward.
Yeah, no, I'm really proud of that. Yeah. Having all the laps completed, that's not something I've had in the past years. Coming into this season, we kind of knew what it took to win the championship, and consistency is key. And we showed that this year, which is so amazing. You were just going over the stats of there's 2 times outside of the top 5. That speaks for itself on how amazing of a season it was.
Yeah, and how much different are you right now? The thought. Remember last year you came so close to winning a couple races at the end of the year, and I know there was probably self-doubt and frustration and everything. So you had that, you had that character building moment, and then it's so much different right now, isn't it?
Yeah,
this is better.
Absolutely. Well, even just 2 months ago or 3 months ago, I don't even know what month it is now. It's been kind of a whirlwind, like you said. But
I feel the same way.
I think that even going into the year, opening up the season with my teammate getting 2 wins before I even got my first win, that was frustrating, and that's something that Ricardo mentioned to me later on in the season. He goes, Stingray, the way that you recovered from that and didn't drop your head and kind of lose motivation after that point was unbelievable.
So true. Yeah. Hey, let's before we jump into that, that's obviously one of the things. So this is kind of a season review for you. Preseason expectations. I kind of set the stage there a bit that you had some struggles last year, super close to a victory at Laguna Seca at the end of the year, only to go off with some gravel on the racetrack. Coming into the season, your second year with Juncos Racing, how did you set things up in terms of expectations?
I expected to do well. and I really, really wanted to win, and it was kind of a make it or break it season for me. We just saw the article recently that came out that kind of said that I had become more of a mainstay in the Indy Pro 2000 series than the car itself.
I read that this morning.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, well, not the best terms, but it gave me a lot of experience. I had a lot of time to grow in the last 4 years in the series. When I came in, I was a rookie looking for my first open wheel car experience, pretty much coming out of go-karts and not really knowing what to expect. And moving on in the series, you learn so much every year. And being with different teams teaches you so much as well, because it not only shows you what you're capable of and what you're needing to work on, but it shows you how you can affect a team. As a driver, there's so many things that go into having a successful season. And one of those things is, being a leader amongst a team, or listening to the team, or, just working together. And so having a second year with Juncos Racing, I think, made a big difference. Just because that relationship was built. I wasn't trying to figure out what was going on, all over again.
Yeah.
And so I think that we all had the expectation to do well in the championship. But, with as many good guys that came in, there was no promises of how success was going to be.
I will say this: when we were doing some previews earlier in the year, and I looked at the lineup coming in this year, I couldn't pick a winner, because I just knew there were so many talented drivers. This was a really stout year in the program. I think it's good to point out, because you talked about 4 years in Indy Pro, and it felt like the article said that you were more of a mainstay in the series than the new car was.
Yeah.
It's important to point out you didn't do USF 2000. So a lot of drivers would do 2 years of USF 2000 and 2 years of Indy Pro. You're still on the same level in terms of the amount of years in Road to Indy, because you just did 4 straight years in Indy Pro. You came in at the end of the Pro Mazda, the older car, did a year there, then we're there for the start of the PM18, and then of course 2 years after that. So it's not like you have a lot more experience than the other drivers. You have the same amount of years. It's just the fact that they've been all in Indy Pro.
Yeah. Coming out of that first year in Pro Mazda, and having to adapt to the new chassis, I think a lot of the drivers kind of had a leg up, because the USF 2000 car and the Indy Pro car are the same chassis, and so I think they have very similar characteristics when you're driving them, versus the old Pro Mazda, where it was sequential gearbox with old style tub frame and adjustable roll bar and all this stuff that are kind of outdated now. Some features that would have been nice to have on the new car, but still very nice to make that jump into the PM18. And then after that first season, it's kind of like, all right, starting to get things figured out. I think I did a few races that were pretty good. Got on podium at Indianapolis in 2018, and then went with Juncos Racing in 2019. Yeah. And I think that's when things really started to click. I kind of had to recover mentally from the previous season when I entered with Juncos Racing, and so we didn't really see what I was capable of until towards the end of the season. Yeah, and that's where we did so well at Portland and Laguna Seca. So, yeah.
You talk about your preseason expectations. You think you win races. You go into Road America and you struggle a little bit in the very first. Let's start with that. Obviously, man, you hit a wall out of the gate, right? You had a bit of trouble. I think you didn't even get a qualifying lap in. Was it a fuel pump or something happened? Whatever it was, it kind of put you on your back foot from the very beginning.
Yeah. So opening qualifying, Road America was kind of a crazy race anyways, because it was a doubleheader. I think it was a doubleheader. Yeah.
Yep.
But it was only one qualifying session. And so we knew that you would have to qualify well in race 1 so you could get good, clean track in race 2, to qualify for race 2.
Yeah.
And so qualifying 1 kind of set the pace for the whole weekend. And coming out of the opening lap, I'm first one out of the pits, go down into turn 5, the hairpin there, and go to step on the throttle, and there's no power. Car just dies. So I figured out it was a fuel pump issue. I got to tow back into behind the wall in turn 5. My mechanic, Alejandro, came sprinting down the hill there at Road America. That's a long ways from the pits.
That's a long run. No doubt. Yeah.
And so I don't know what he did. He took the car apart and put it back together in like a matter of minutes and sent me back up the hill. So I was probably going a little quick, but anyways, I wanted to get back out on track and got back in pits just in time for a red flag to come out. Oh. And so I ended up doing one warm-up lap and having to pit, and it was just unfortunate, the way that things worked out, but started last row for race 1. And I think I finished 5th in that race, and we did pretty good. I mean, I was pretty happy with how the car was and the progress I was being able to make. And then for race 2, my teammate got out to a lead early, and I kind of had to chase the guys in front of me. And I just remember thinking, like, dang, if that wasn't my teammate, I'd be super mad, but I'm still kind of mad because it's my teammate. So kind of like a catch-22. You know, he's got the same car set up as you, so
Yep.
you're kind of working with the same materials, and it's all down to the driver at that point. So I knew that he had been quick all weekend. Artem's a really good driver. It's nice to have him as a teammate just for the aspect of having good data.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that once he was out front, there was no chance of catching him.
All right, so let's go from the trials and tribulations of Road America to then essentially what was kind of the turning point, I think, obviously for your career. You go to Mid Ohio, couple of decent finishes. Obviously, your teammate wins again. He's got 2 victories. You're waiting for that first one, and you've talked about this before. And it's been written about in a couple of articles. Talk about what you did on that weekend to put yourself where you needed to be mentally.
Yeah, so at Mid Ohio, I knew that we had a good car, and I knew that I think I qualified in the top 4 or something. It was pretty good. I mean, we knew that we were quick going into race 1. I ended up finishing 10th that race though.
Yeah,
race 1, and that was no one's fault other than my own. I mean, I could try and put the blame on someone, but there was no excuse. I mean, I was so frustrated after that race. I came into the pits, parked the car, get out, walk in the trailer, just shoved my helmet in the cubby and left. People didn't know where I was. I just went out for a walk by myself towards that park area close to the paddock there in Mid Ohio. And I ended up taking a knee out there, and I was so angry I couldn't even stand. I mean, I was so frustrated at this point, and I just started praying, like, how much more am I going to have to go through? Like, if it's not the car falling apart, someone running into the back of me, or flying over the top of me, or you know, just crazy things that happen on typical race weekends, then it's just me making a mistake and not being able to get a good finish. And at that point, I kind of had this rush of peace. And I think it was just I mentioned the verse at the speech.
You did, yeah.
In St. Petersburg, and it's James 1, and it talks about how trials and tribulations, when you persevere through them, it creates another level of perseverance. So it's kind of like when you put a muscle under tension, it's going to tear, and then it's going to be
build itself back up. Yep,
exactly. So it's building capacity. So in that same sense, my perseverance level was building because of all the stuff I'd been putting it through. So
that's true.
And at that point, I kind of realized, like, it was all for a purpose. You know, the last 3 years have all been designed to work towards a goal. And, you know, we didn't see the success. We didn't see the rewards of, you know, all the different things that had happened until now. And I think at that point, I had my mind right where it was like, it doesn't matter what happens. I know it's all working towards a goal that God has for me. I know that I'm serving my purpose. So as long as I'm doing that, I'll be set. And it doesn't really matter what else happens. And then 2 races later, I think I was in, I think 5th on the start, ended up winning that race. And it was just kind of like, there it is.
There it is.
There it is.
Ta-da!
So, yeah, exactly. It's kind of like everything came together that weekend where my mind got right and the team got the right setup on the car. And it was just kind of like everything came together finally.
Yeah, it was like there was the payback for the trust, right?
Yeah,
that you were able to get. So give us just a little. I know you went over this before. We've talked about it, but the little taste of the. I gotta think the absolute relief of getting that first victory. That I know you just mentioned you were in tears going around that the victory lap, which would not surprise me at all. Just give us a little taste of how that felt.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, words can't describe that feeling of relief and victory and just like thankfulness of everything that has happened. You know, at that point, I was thankful for all the things that I'd been put through because I knew I wouldn't be there without it. You know, so kind of like,
that's it.
Yeah, I'm starting to get emotional just talking about it now. Like, God. But
listen, you got to put a lot. You got to put a lot of pressure on a piece of coal to turn it into a diamond. You know that, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Right?
So hopefully I'm heading in that direction.
Well, listen, you turned everything right there, so you're definitely heading in that direction. You take that first victory, and we go into a couple of oval races at the Freedom 90 and Lucas Oil Raceway. Then we go to Gateway as well. You weren't able to get back to the victory lane, but you had a really strong run at the Freedom. Probably learned something there because you pushed super hard to try to get by Cody Swanson on the bottom. And I think you burned the tires up a little bit. But then you end up coming back and having a pretty good run at Gateway as well. Can you talk about how different you felt during those particular oval races, having got that first win?
Yeah. So Lucas Oil last year, I think I finished second in that event, and that was really good. For not being very comfortable on the oval, I think that we had a really good car, and I was really happy with finishing second there. It was one of those races that was a big confidence builder.
Yeah.
And then this year, I kind of expected to do something similar to that, maybe even go for a win, building off of the confidence gain from last year. And so opening up that race, we knew that Cody Swanson was the hometown guy. He was the guy that knew the track the best. And I ended up starting to try and go on the inside, and it did not work out very well. And so I ended up burning my tires off a little bit. Sorry, hang on 1 second, Rob. I gotta move rooms here or something. I got someone at the door. Let me just take that real
That's
quick.
Okay. That's okay. Go for it. I'll set this up. I love this. This is live, folks. This is why we do this. I'll bring up a couple things here while Sting Ray's taking care of this. As we said, the 7 victories. What I thought was really interesting, the last 5 events of the year, Indianapolis, of course, Mid-Ohio, New Jersey Motorsports Park, and St. Petersburg. Sting Ray was able to get at least one win at all 4 of those venues. Of course, 3 in a row, was able to sweep it at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But I think the fact that he was able then to keep that momentum up, there wasn't even one weekend where he didn't find himself not at least on top of the podium at one time. And I like the ebbs and flows of that challenge. In some races, able to come back in others, but to be able to get race wins. I was just saying you were able to get race wins in the last 4 weekends of the year, at least one victory in all the last 4 weekends. I think was really cool. There wasn't one track that you struggled on really at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. You were able to find victories every time.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry about that. I had a neighbor come over. Apparently their dog got into our backyard by jumping the fence or something. And they wanted to talk to you about it.
It's live. It's all right. It's all good. I love it. All right. So again, like you said, you're battling with Cody Swanson there. Learned a little bit there. Then you go to Gateway. And how do you feel things happen to work for you guys at Gateway?
Sorry. Goodness, this live show has just been a ball. Well, I love it. Going to the Gateway, I wasn't very confident.
Yep.
And in the opening test sessions on the day, I ended up being 2 or 3 tenths off to my teammate, and I just remember thinking, well, what the heck are we doing out here just running laps? Yep. Let's get behind him. Let me see what he's doing. And we know we have the same car, so I should be able to do the same thing. And I ran behind him for 2 laps, oh, all right, we got this. We're good. Nice. And from that point, we went into the morning practice the day after qualifying right before the race. And I don't know what the team did to the car. I don't know. I mean, I gave my feedback and they gave me exactly what I wanted. It was like night and day difference that morning. I mean, I remember I was chasing, might have been Devlin or someone, I can't remember. We chased down every single car except for one and passed them. And it was working well in and out of traffic by myself. I mean, the car was on rails. And so I was like, dang, that was pretty sweet. I mean, I want to go back to an oval just to experience that again. And going into the race, the car was similar, but I know that Braden, he had a really good car. And I had to hold him off the whole race. And I was just doing everything I could to keep him behind me. I'm like, dang, he's so quick. And I could see, I'm working the aero a little bit, trying to, make him have a little bit of a tougher time than I would have not let him, trying to keep him behind me. So I think we did a good job walking away from there with a 4th place.
Points.
Yeah, exactly. And so with that said, Gateway was really good. Another confidence builder.
And we got a little comment here from Diane Swintel. She says, you got to love live TV. No doubt. No doubt about it. All right, so let's I'm gonna bring a picture up here in a second. Let's go to what I call the game changer, potentially the career changer, and that's you going to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and flat dominating. You were able to get a race win at Mid-Ohio, the emotion, get the monkey off your back, couple of good runs at the oval, battling with Swanson, fighting with Braden Eves, a decent run. You go to Indy, dude, and out of the gate, it's just it's every race car driver, kart racer, I don't care it is, they want a weekend like that where everything goes absolutely perfectly. Give me a little insight on how things happen. 3 wins, you take over the point lead. What an amazing weekend in Indianapolis.
Yeah. So going into Indianapolis, we knew that we lost a couple of engineers from the team last year that had our setup, and we kind of dominated their last year as well. Rasmus he got a couple of wins there, I think, last season. And so we knew that the car setup was good. And so we knew that we had to build a better setup than the other teams had from our setup last year, So we kind of revamped the setup a little bit in comparison to what we had, I think. And so that was kind of like the golden child of Ricardo and Kevin.
Here's the man here. There.
That's the man right there. That's the one that got it done. So they gave me a great car, and we made a good tire strategy for the weekend. And I remember we qualified second for race 1. My teammate was first, and I was so mad about that because I was like, there's no excuse. When your teammate's got the same car as you and he's beating you, and it wasn't even like a big gap, but it was enough that I was like, oh, I wanted that so bad.
Yeah.
And so we ended up finishing first in race 1, and I remember we had there was a wreck on the start or something. I fell back, and I think I was sitting in 5th on the restart. I got passed before turn 1 and ended up passing him back into turn 1. And from that point, I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going to the front. I'm done with this.
There you go.
And so I started chasing guys down. We had the car that I was just like on rails, like I said. I ended up chasing Hunter down. He kind of just waved me on by. I remember he saw how fast I came up on him. And like,
I remember that.
All right, Sting Ray, come on ahead.
I'm not putting up a fight here.
Exactly. So he kind of pointed me by and said, let's go to the front together. And so we did.
And use you. You were able to use Artem at Gateway, Hunter's wise to like, this guy's faster than me. Go by me. I'm gonna pick something up here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he did. I mean, he finished second in that race because of that, I think.
Yep.
My teammate Artem was in the lead for quite a while until we were able to slip on by him. And from that point on, it was kind of like to stay out front until the red flag came out for Braden, which was unfortunate. So race 2, I remember, I think Devlin had new tires that race, and we were starting on pole. And I was like, all right, this is going to be interesting. We knew that new tires made a big difference. And once I was out in the lead, though, we were gone. I mean, it was just like lights out for that whole race.
Did you guys make many changes throughout the weekend, or once you got that set up, that baseline set up? Was there a lot of tuning on it? It was a weird weekend because we were standalone, right? We didn't have the IndyCar guys going out and laying down their Firestone rubber. It was nothing but Cooper tire rubber the entire time. And I want to know if you guys made any changes to the car.
Yeah, I think that the team just adapted to the conditions. I said the car was good, and so I want the same balance for the rest of the weekend, and that's what they did. And there wasn't anything that really changed. Yeah, so race 2, Devlin was on new tires, and he made a good jump to the start, and we ended up running away with it. And then race 3, we had a new set of tires left, and I remember Peter Dempsey, I think it was talking to Kevin, my engineer, and he was just like, "Are you kidding me? Like,
You've got you just won both races, and you have fresh tires for the third race."
Yeah, exactly. And so they were a little bit discouraged at that point, I think, but it was more of the same. It was a special weekend though, having it be my birthday weekend.
That's it.
And having it be my mechanic's birthday weekend as well. We did a kind of an extended celebration over the course of the 2 days.
I love it.
And so it was special to share that with him and celebrate a little bit better than what we normally would.
And part of the craziness, we then turn around and go right to Mid-Ohio, like very, very quickly to Mid-Ohio. You go back to the scene of the first win and have a really good weekend again. You get another victory. Going into that race, did that first win really play? Obviously, you got the victories at Indianapolis. We all know that car setups are kind of track specific, right? You can have a great car at one track, but maybe you're not quite as good somewhere else. You guys knew you had both Artem and yourself won the first time coming through. Was the confidence at an all-time high heading back to Mid-Ohio?
For me, yeah. I mean, as a driver, I was so comfortable in the car. I was really liking the way that the team and I were working together and we were figuring things out. Race 1, though, back at Mid-Ohio, I remember that was kind of a disaster. I think I finished 4th. And in my mind, I'm like, that's a disaster. But,
right.
Just come off a weekend sweep and you're like, 4th? What are we doing back there? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I wasn't very happy with the car. And the team knew that. And I think it was just adapting to the Firestone rubber a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave him my feedback and they're like, all right, Sting, go away. We'll take care of it for you. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll let you do your thing. I'll do my thing.
That's it.
And it was so good. Race 2, we had that monsoon come through right before.
That's right. Yep.
And ended up restarting on pole. So that was really good for the final start of race 2, and walked away with it. Parker was pushing me the whole entire race, but we had some good laps there at the end. I know Finelli and Kaminsky were battling it out in front of us on one of the closing laps, and they ended up getting together or something. And
that was hectic.
I was a little nervous with that. I looked in my mirror, saw Parker, and got out of the way, trying to not hit Finelli. And from that point, it's kind of like, okay, quality laps. I need to get back out to a gap where I'm not towing Parker around down the straightaway. So last few laps, I think that I laid some good times down that were able to keep us in the lead.
So you get another victory. You're in a really good spot. Do you guys go to New Jersey for that triple header and say, we're going to clinch? Or was it, we're going to go get good points? Or was it, you know what, this is it, we're winning now?
Yeah. So we actually didn't know what we needed to win. We didn't do the calculations because we were just going to go, okay, if we focus on just getting points, then everything else will take care of itself. If we just finish as far up the field as we can, everything else will be taken care of. So I talked to Kevin, my engineer. So actually, let's start off with, we went to the test there right beforehand.
That's right.
I remember Hunter McElroy was crazy quick, Colin was crazy quick, and Devlin was crazy quick. And it was kind of like, this is not looking good for us. Like, this is kind of not good. Anyways, and so we looked like we had 4th place set up, and I don't know if it was what. I mean, we were just kind of looking for it, and I think it was just because they had more new tires going to that test than we did. But going to the race, we didn't change the setup a whole lot from the test. We were kind of like, all right, we got our baseline. We're just going to run it and see how things go. And ended up blowing a motor on the opening test day there. And so we didn't get any track time like the other guys did. And went out for test session 3, did a really good time on new tires, and then qualified second the following morning to Devlin. And I think it was by 0.008 of a second.
Yeah, it was close.
So it was so close. And then for race 1, the weekend kind of had an ominous feel of rain. And we didn't know when it was going to come or how much was going to come. And team and I decided to make a call to save a new set of tires for race 2.
Yep.
Or for, quality 2 going sticker. And so race 1, Devlin went on new tires. We were on used. Devlin got out to a lead early and just ran away with it. I mean, he drove a great race. But I was really happy with how the car felt on the used setup. Quality 2 came around. And we went, we can save another set of tires here and have a new set for the race. And so we ended up rolling out on used where everyone else went on stickers. And I think I was 0.4 off of first, rolling out on used, the first place. And so we're like, dang, we got a really good car. This is going to be sweet. And ended up qualifying on pole by like 0.3 of a second, which is unbelievable. I think I had one of the best laps I've ever driven in a qualifying session there, and the car was on rails. And so it's kind of like the perfect combination of everything we needed to have a successful qualifying. Then we had the new tires for race 2, again, similar to what we had at race 3 in Indianapolis. I think some of the other teams looked at that and they're like, no, why?
We're behind.
So, yeah. And once I was out in the lead, I think that it was pretty clear that we were just going to stay there. But it was kind of funny during that race. My engineer was on the radio with me. He goes, Sting Ray, their pace is 14.5. Let's think about the tires. And at that point, I was doing like 13.9 or something. It's still early on. So I slowed down to like a 14.0. And I feel like I'm just slugging around. And they're like, Sting Ray, the pace is 14.5. 14.5.
Back it down.
Yeah. And so I back it down to like 14.2 or 14.3 or something. And they're like, okay, whatever. He's fine.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So that was really funny just to kind of have that radio communication, like, okay, guys, fine, I'll appease you. But it was really a fun weekend. And then race 3, that rain finally came. Started second for that race. Had some wheel spin off the line, which made me feel like a complete rookie. I don't think I've ever felt more like a rookie than that moment.
You're yelling at yourself going down to turn one, right?
Exactly. I'm like, oh, what have you done?
Oh,
Like,
no.
that was so ridiculous. I'm like, well, we had a chance to clinch. Now we don't. So I'll just cruise the rest of the race. And so for the opening half of that race, we were kind of just sitting there, not worrying a whole lot about points. We were just going to try and salvage what we could that event, not push it too much, not trying to wreck or anything. And ended up following my teammate as he tried to get around Dev one, and they got together on one of the back corners there in the rain and went off the track. And those were my two title contenders. Yep. And I was like, where's that put us in the points?
Where are we?
And the team ended up telling me, like, if you finish 6th, you're fine. And I was sitting in 4th at that point. Yep. Like, oh, sweet. And we got to the restart, ended up going green. Hunter jumped out early away from me, and then pretty soon I started to catch him. And I remember thinking, like, well, I like podiums. And so the team got on the radio, and before I could even ask, they're like, all right, Sting Ray, go for the podium. Go for a top. Like, all right, sweet. Yep. Sounds good. And ended up chasing Hunter down, passed him on the outside in turn 1. And I was so happy with that. I was like, oh, yeah.
That was a big pass.
Even though we had clinched the championship, that was still pretty cool. But that was a really sweet pass. You know, I'm still a competitor, and I don't like to just give it up during a race.
I know.
And so going for a podium was kind of necessary.
Did you know on the cool down lap you had clinched it?
They said provisionally, that I had taken the championship. So getting out of the car, I was pretty excited. Gave everyone hugs, but waited until later for it to be official.
I got that one
there. You go. Yeah,
that's you and your mom.
I remember my mom came up to me crying. That's my team or my mechanic in the back there. He was crying.
Yeah,
but I wasn't crying yet. At that point, I had not started.
And there's the family right there. This is your support team week in and week out, right?
Yeah, that's them. I mean, it's every weekend. I know that my dad has been to every single race in my life except for one. I know it's because he was in the hospital, and he was still on the phone with us telling us what to do to set up the cart.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. All right, so you get it done. We go to St. Petersburg, and the whole time I'm calling it. I'm calling it your exclamation point on the end of this season, right? Yeah. You want to put an exclamation point on the end of the sentence, the story that you guys have been telling throughout the season. It ends up with a new track record in qualifying. You reset your own race lap record as well. You end up winning race number 1. That's an exclamation point. You aren't able to quite get it done in race 2 to sweep the entire weekend. But, man, all in all, just a fantastic weekend for you. Great way to cap the season off. And I'm sure having that championship already clinched, it must have been just a more relaxed weekend, man. I'm just feeling good. I'm going to do what I can.
Yeah. Going into St. Pete, it was kind of like, well, we got 2 options. We can go for it, or we can, lay back and just cruise until the finish line kind of a deal. And I didn't really want to do that cruising thing. And so qualified on pole. And in race 1, I knew that we had a really good car. In the opening lap, I jumped out to a pretty good lead. And pretty soon I remember Daniel Frost coming up in my mirrors, and they're on the radio telling me the gaps or whatever. And, I was trying to pace myself during the race in case a caution came out and we could have some good tires towards the end of the event if there was a restart or something.
Yep.
And so towards the end of the race, I saw Daniel come in my mirrors, and I told Kevin, my engineer on the radio, I'm like, all right, just be quiet. Let me drive for the next few laps. Just let's see what we can do.
That's it.
And before that, actually, I asked them, I did I can't remember what our times were there, but I did something like a 0.5. And I knew that the race record was like a 0.49 or 0.5 something. And so I asked them, like, what's the race record? And I was out in the lead, so I was trying to set little goals,
Oh, boy.
And they're like, don't worry about it. Just drive. And I was like, dang, all right, I'll figure it out later.
I'll just do it later.
Anyways, yeah. And they ended up getting on the radio the last few laps, like, Sting Ray, you need to push. Daniel's coming. Like, all right, I'll push.
Thank you.
Yep. And ended up setting the race record twice. And so that was pretty cool. On the final lap too. Being able to go that whole race and then save the tires enough to on the last lap, I had a really good lap time. So that was fun.
So we capped the weekend off. We capped the year off in the Mahaffey Theater on Sunday, and I know you guys were getting choked up. Of course, we're doing the banquet. The family's all there, and I'm spouting through all the stuff that you've done. Obviously, you can I'm looking at you getting a little bit choked up, but you were able to get up on the stage, and I'll tell you, it was impressive, man. I was about to. See, I'm sticking to the schedule too. Tammy Valkowski's got me on the schedule. I think I was like 2 or 3 minutes early. I was doing a great job. And then you rolled in. Your speech was not a track record. It was a little longer, but no, listen. Everything you wanted to say, you were able to say. You were unbelievably eloquent, and I thought it was great that you, obviously up on the stage like that, getting a chance to talk about your your whole experience of this year and the people around you and everything. I thought you did a great job with that.
Yeah. Well, so I ended up writing the speech, having a little time in between New Jersey and St. Pete.
Yep.
And I had practiced it a few times before going to St. Pete, and I hadn't made it through without crying. And I'm not typically a crier. And so I'm like, shoot, this is not going to be good. We're going to get there to the banquet.
Yeah.
And it is big. And it was kind of those same emotions that I felt at Mid-Ohio after that first win. Kind of like you're grateful for all the people, all the things that have happened, all the trials that you've been put through so that you can appreciate this moment that much more.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I needed to tell the story a little bit because it was a story to tell. And so for me, it was something I needed to get off my heart a little bit in that speech. And I didn't really know how long that they were going to let me go up there. And so I was like, if I do a good one, they might let me go a little bit longer. And I didn't quite.
I wasn't going to stop you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Thank you for not.
You're going to keep going.
Yeah. But my goal was to make it through the speech without crying until the end, when I started to thank my parents and grandparents and everyone.
Yeah, it's gonna be a struggle.
And
there, right?
They ended up playing the highlight video before I went up there. And I started sobbing like halfway through the highlight video. I'm like, oh, this is so bad. Like,
hey, it's real emotion, man. It's real emotion, which you never have to apologize for.
It was so special too, because that night, I mean, it was a little bit of a quicker banquet than what we normally have, and I felt like it was. I don't know if I felt like it was more of an intimate banquet just because of that. Like it was our people. There wasn't like a flashy dinner or anything. It was very nice to have that banquet and experience all the different things with the people and hear people's emotions and do all that. But I got to share that with not just like my parents, my grandparents, but a lot of my investors as well. And so those investors have been with me for the longest time now, and they've kind of been by my side over the last 2-3 years, believing in me through all those trials and tribulations. So
That's awesome.
I felt like I needed to tell the story to them as well. They kind of see it, but to remind them of like, look at where we've been, look at what we've gone through, look at what we can now appreciate because of that.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So I get up on stage, I'm like already crying. I'm like, all right, guys, bear with me here.
Hey, and your investors and your family got to see this too, which I thought was pretty cool, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can see there, I'm getting over it a little bit, but just the emotions are so real in that moment of just like, wow, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for everything.
It's definitely amazing for sure. Let's, let's kind of move into 2021, but I got a really interesting, Kat Nickel posted something here. I want to throw this down. She says, first off, congratulations. And then do you feel like you and Daniel Frost are maybe at more of an advantage, just of course, heading into next year, having had a bit more racing this season, even as far as momentum? I know some of the drivers at IMSA, Rasmuth Lind, Kyle Kirkwood running LMP3. You were actually on the track that we're going to run on next year. You ran St. Petersburg. Do you feel like maybe you're going to have a little bit of an advantage moving into 2021, knowing that you've done that? Tough question, right? Yeah.
It is a tough question.
Yeah, you don't want to say it, but you like.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't want to get cocky because.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You'll get humbled real quick if that's the case. But anyways.
The bottom line is you have momentum, you have confidence, and really you got a chance to race all our races still going into next year, right?
Yeah. I think I'll be more comfortable coming back next season.
Yeah.
But that Kyle Kirkwood and Rasmus and whoever else that is that signs is going to be very quick, right out of the gates. Even with minimal testing, it's going to be a strong year for them just because. I mean, they're all great drivers. We thought that this year was strong. Yeah, we're going to think that next year's even worse.
It's going to be big.
There's going to be next year 3 champions next year.
That's it. Yeah, crazy. 3 of them. 2 Indy Pro and Formula Regional Americas. Speaking of 2020, excuse me, my turn with live TV.
Live TV, I like it.
Choking it up here.
Making me feel like I'm not so bad.
That's what I was trying to do. I'm trying to make you feel better. 2021. I'm going to ask you right now, where are we? Do you know where you're racing right now yet? When are we going testing?
Well, I have a test coming in about a month, but I can't say with who and
You're gonna say that. I knew it.
where we're looking to be at. But I know where I want to be,
Yeah.
and I think that we'll end up there. But still talking with a few teams. We're letting Peter do all the negotiations right now. He's trying to figure out what's going to be the best case scenario for us.
Yeah, you mentioned Peter. You on part of your management team is Peter Rossi, the father of Alexander Rossi. And when you guys connected, I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was awesome because Peter has obviously been through the ringer himself. I look at your parents and they've been through with you, and your dad through the karting ranks and everything. Peter did the same thing. He took Alexander to Formula BMW, did the whole thing in Europe. He's been through the grinder himself, but he works with you. I know on a lot of on the investor side and a lot of the management side. Mm-hmm. Just I know you don't want to talk. He's kind of he's kind of behind the scenes kind of guy. But can you give us a little indication of Peter Rossi and what he brings to you in terms of support, maybe structure?
Throughout the year, I mean, like you said, he's been through the ringer, and so to have him have that experience of getting through that and believing in something, and then also having him believe in me. Even through the trials and everything was very good to have, because there are points in any athlete's career, I think, that you get discouraged based on not having the results that you want to have. And so to have someone that has that knowledge and experience of working your way through it and kind of shares that with you and passes it along and then shows that they believe that you're going to do it is something that I don't think you can get anywhere else. It's just another level of assurance. Even though that you may not have it in yourself, you can kind of believe in their belief, if that makes sense.
100%, yeah.
And it's different than having a family member believe in you, like having my mom or my dad or my grandma and grandpa.
They're always gonna.
Exactly. They're always going to be there by my side. They're always going to support me as long as I'm working towards that goal. But having Peter as an outsider a little bit, kind of stepping in and saying, all right, Sting Ray, I've seen what you can do. Now let's do it, kind of a thing. And so having him also on the financial side doing the same thing is very important, because it gives me an opportunity to not have to worry about, okay, are we going to be in the car this weekend? Yep. Now, there was 3 times this year where my mom booked my dad and I flights and said, all right, I'll let you know if we have the money when you get there. And we get on the plane not knowing, and we get off the plane going, all right, they did it. We got investors. So
wow, that's amazing. This is an ongoing story, and this is only obviously one of the chapters of it. This is going to be something that maybe I'll write a book about it later on, Bud. When you get to IndyCar, I'd be more than happy to do that. All right, so timeline is you're going to be testing next month, like you said. You're being very quiet. You're not telling us who it's with. That kind of annoys me. That's okay. Have you driven an Indy Lights car at all yet?
No, haven't even sat in one.
Cannot wait to get the feedback on that.
I know. Yeah, that's me good. Too. It's been a dream of mine over the last few years to get in one, but finally coming true here soon.
Well, I appreciate you coming on this edition of the Insider Live. Again, a season review kind of period here. We got the Rookie of the Year guys coming next week and the week after in Christian Brooks and Devlin DeFrancesco. But Sting Ray, to cap it off, congratulations on a fantastic season. A bunch of race wins, 7 victories after that first one. And I told you, you get that first win, floodgates would open. And they did. No doubt about it. Hey, thanks for joining me, buddy. I appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thanks, Rob.
Sting Ray Robb, ladies and gentlemen, what a fantastic young driver here in this American racing program on the road to Indy. 4 years in Indy Pro 2000. Next year is going to be an Indy Lights. And as he talked about, it's going to be a stout year. Kirkwood, the 2019 Indy Pro champion, has his scholarship. Linus Lindquist coming over from the Formula Regionals Championship with a scholarship from Honda. Daniel Frostback, probably I'm going to say Robert McGinnis, Toby Sowery, David Malukas, all these guys coming back again, and more drivers coming into the fray as well. This is going to be an unbelievably great year in Indy Lights. I'm so glad that it's coming back in 2021. We're not going to the Freedom 100. That's, of course, sad, but we're going to the streets of Detroit. And although they haven't confirmed it yet, I'm really hoping that we end up being on the docket at Nashville as well. I think that would be an awesome weekend. A lot of street races for the drivers in Indy Lights. And again, we're going to see a driver graduate from Indy Lights to IndyCar in 2022. Folks, I appreciate you joining me here on another edition of The Insider. This is going to go, of course, on the Road to Indy Insider podcast as well. You can get that on iTunes. I just started the Rob Howden podcast. That's going to be there with my Book It podcast and a bunch of other stuff I do as well. I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much. More content coming in the offseason. And again, remember, what's the reminder? Steve Whittick here on the Road to Indy Insider Live. We'll do our own little preview or season review rather on Monday. I don't know if we figured a time up, probably around 2:00 on Monday. where we're back at it again. And you can get all the broadcasts on my YouTube channel. Come back and watch them anytime you want. We always push them out on social media anyways, but I do appreciate it, folks. Have an awesome day. It's Friday. Hey, have a great weekend as well. Book it.